Hello and welcome to the Single Malt Review. Oh no, it's a beer.
Look at that. The clock has struck beer.
That's that pitter patter is the sound of our already microscopic audience dividing itself by half as people go, ugh, gone. No, but no. This I promise. This is where does the beer end and whiskey begin? Today. That's
ordinary beer. There. It's not your grandpa's beer.
This is about as extraordinary of a beer as you're likely to find in the world, frankly. This is, and I'll give you a close-up of the very, very difficult to read with the lighting here because of the font choice. This is Bastard Rye from Garage Project, because of course it is. Specifically their Wild Workshop brewery, so not their principal one, the weird one that is still in Wellington, Marion Street, if you're familiar. And it's where they do all the oddball stuff and where their barrel program resides.
Now, this is not the first Bastard Rye from the Garage Project. Some years ago, we tried the first version, not on the channel, we just tried it in our own time. It was aged about maybe 2 years then, a rye beer aged in bourbon barrels at a bottle very high strength for a beer. And it cost about $70 a bottle. It was a special thing, 70 New Zealand dollars. We chipped in. Like, a few of us contributed to buy a half-litre bottle.
I know someone who bought 3 of those for some reason. Madman. But anyway. But
no, fast forward a number of years.
Yeah.
It's still Bastard Rye, but this is an 8-year-old expression, 8-year age statement beer.
The insanity of this, actually, there's about 5 different reasons why this beer is insane. But the insanity where it specifically relates to whiskey, that's older than most New Zealand whiskey.
Yeah.
That is most New Zealand distillers have not got programs going back that far. That's truly this is one of the only things in New Zealand that you could actually put 8 years old on it. It's that much of a weird thing, and that is really only where it begins. It is 14.7% ABV. There is almost 5 standard drinks in this 375ml
That is
bottle.
Stronger than your average oak-aged red wine.
Yep.
And this is simply the ingredients here. We have, where was that list here? Barley malt, rye malt, hops, yeast, and water. Just standard rye beer ingredients. And 8 full years in bourbon barrels. And look at that. That is like one of the stronger Belgian lambics. That is very dark.
It's a lovely rose. Yeah. It's almost a sort of a rose gold. There's a red tint to it. And I'm not quite sure where that comes from.
A big of rye beer plus the extra aging in those barrels. You have tried this before.
I have tried this before.
I have not. I've tried the OG Bastard Rye.
I got a tiny drip on my fingers and it's already sticky like syrup. The gravity on this is so high, it is just an absolute wonder that it fermented at all.
I've been looking forward to this one. I tried to find someone in the stores when it came out again, but
that's right. I snared one for you, so you've got one to go home with as well, unless you really hate it.
Wow.
I don't think this beer is hateable. I think this beer is very, very good, but it is, as Dave is about to discover, a great deal all at once.
It is rich.
And unless you want to, I mean, we could literally have this with a teaspoon. Not even ironically,
you could build a house out of this stuff almost.
Yeah, it is frighteningly strong and frighteningly dense. It is just oozes.
On the nose, I'm getting overwhelmed by notes of pumpernickel, the very heavy, almost black German rye bread.
The rye is definitely out there in spades.
And Marmite, the good old savoury yeast spread, beloved or be hated by nearly everyone in a Commonwealth nation.
Yeah, Marmite's good. I didn't get the Marmite the first time around, but it's absolutely there, which is odd in that that's normally something we would associate with strong dark beer. So that's probably another figment of the rye coming through. And then there's all of the bourbon that you would expect. There's sort of the toasted coconut. There's oak for days and days and days. Vanilla out the ass. It's just...
Now, I remember the original Bastard Rye being a very good rye beer. It had lots of cask character. It was rich. It was flavourful. This is just every slider pushed up to 11.
That was the original Bastard Rye in its day. One of the first touches that New Zealand brewing really had with bourbon barrel aged beers. We weren't really doing it back then. We had a few old chestnuts like the Moa Imperial, but I've always been a bit suspicious that was done with
Chips.
Chips, yeah. It always had that.
Which is where you age it in stainless steel, but add wood chips to it.
So actually putting beer in barrel at all was a bit of an anathema way back then. Because it was 2017 sounds recent, and it is pretty recent, but... in New Zealand craft beer, time moves, is like, Waiheke specifically said, dog's years. Everything just moves so quick. Things have developed so fast. The
industry has evolved fast.
If this had come out in 2017, no one would have known what to do with it. We've just been too lunatic. So, anyway, and there's just heaps of roast and toast and goodness going on. And it is just, it is immediate.
It's got the heft and body of a barley wine. The syrupy sweetness, though, of a... If anything, this really reminds me of PX Sherry, Petrol Himnes.
Yep.
It
has
rich, almost raisiny finish, despite the complete absence of raisins.
More to do, to my palate, to a sweet sherry than it does to any sort of beer on the planet.
Fortified dessert wine of a beer.
If it wasn't a little bit bubbly, and it is a very little bit bubbly, the carbonation is intentionally not high at all. You wouldn't want this frothy. It would probably be impossible to actually open or pour. It would be a Belgian nightmare trying to get this one out of the bottle if it was any more carbonated than it is. So it's just a light spritzig there, and that's all you really want. And
wow,
it's just it's so monumental in so many different ways. It makes it quite difficult to describe in one mouthful because it is itself so many mouthfuls of beer at once.
Yes. It's funny, I'm not tasting as much of the rye as I could get on the nose. The other flavours are so explosive in there. Well,
the barrel has become such a colossus of an influence. I get malt influence almost last. What happens with very, very strong beers, they start out awful sweet because, especially when they are this strong, that yeast is that's tapping out, unless they've been fermented with champagne yeast or something, or they've gone down the dark path of spontaneous fermentation and let wild yeasts do their work.
A heck of a wild yeast, it could stand nearly 15% alcohol.
Well, I think of wild yeasts. And now we're going down a... anyone still here for the spontaneous beer tangent has signed the waiver. The incredible thing about wild yeasts and spontaneous beer, even if the yeast that gets into the beer at the beginning doesn't have the stuff, and it probably doesn't if it came off of a lemon or a chimney or wherever the wild yeast, wherever wild yeasts can be found, which is typically everywhere. Because it spends years in that barrel and the life cycle of yeast is short, actual evolution is going on in there, and the process is called attenuation. And it's not usually looked after, rather sought after, because it's the yeast rather, adapting over many generations, literally to digest the available sugar.
And resist the ever-increasing level of alcohol as they pour.
So too much alcohol will attenuate towards that. Too much sugar will attenuate towards that. Too much acid will attenuate towards that. It's evolution before your eyes, but still over the period of years in case of spawn beers. But that's very much it in a nutshell, because I'm not a professional brewer, and even professional brewers, the ones who go to muck around with that stuff are scant. Ollie, if you're watching, brave man. So that's what happens there, and it's not sought after at all in controlled brewing, because if you've done a brew, the sensible thing to do would be to just harvest the yeast you've already made, like we've done from Belgian beers in long distance past, and proceed to brew again. But that yeast is not the yeast you started out with. So if you're looking for a particular yeast character, you need to buy more and get rid of your old stuff, because the beer that's brewed has left its mark on that yeast, and it will never again be the same. So that is both how yeast gets away with it, and also the reason it is not allowed to in a great many cases. This doesn't have any. The one here's a beer question. What's conspicuous about this barrel aged beer? It's weird in 5 different ways. It's not weird in one. We were just talking about it.
Oh, tricky.
Answer at home.
The carbonation certainly a factor. I've assumed this has been
No, carbonation happens
and
afterwards. Or
CO2
in bottle.
pumped in. Yeah.
It's not sour.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, softness.
So this barrel has remained clean, even in, because you don't need much. You usually just need a not completely sterilised barrel, and if you don't even get wild yeasts, you'll get. It only takes one acetobacter cell, and you'll get that barrel funk. You'll get the barrel
vinegar,
weirdness on there. There is zero in there. As much as this beer is extremely dirty, it's also extremely clean in terms of there's no bugginess to this at all.
No acetobacter, no lactobacillus, no Brettanomyces. None of the infectious agents which can transform or even kill a barrel-aged beer.
So they must have had these casks locked down tight, and I mean tight, because 8 years, because strong as this is, it's not whiskey. Bugs will very happily dive in here and Scrooge McDuck their way through the not insignificant levels of residual sugar, which you can taste how much there is. It's still, there's probably still 5% to go in here. Was it left to wild devices and really, really, really go for it? And that hasn't happened. So this must have been one squeaky. Oh dear, just do a burp into the microphone. There we go. It's the beer segment. We're allowed. Next up, cheese and farting. Anyway, I digress.
Story of my life.
I've torpedoed myself now. Anyway, to keep the barrel in such pristine condition over 8 years, because anything had gotten in, anything, like I mean it, a cell of acetobacter had got in, that would be it. 8 years later, you'd have a post-warp civilization going on inside that barrel. It's such a long time.
And Garage Project, to be credited, do some frankly stunning sour beers. They are busy with the lactobacillus.
They hold just about a room full of trophies now for quite specifically their spontaneous beer, Chance, Luck and Magic. So much so that
has been kept clear of all those nasties.
Yeah,
well, nasties in this context.
Considering it came out of the same brewery as well, they must have had a sheet over this one for sure. But however they did it. It
is quality control. One of the first rules of brewing is sterilize your equipment.
Yeah. So we've got all wood and nothing but the wood, which is technically remarkable. It might not sound that exciting. I've tried to make it sound as exciting as I can, but when you're into the technicalities of brewing and aging in this case, it is quite really quite interesting to see something go as long as it has without it being led astray.
The only, I guess, the real question of this beer is, who is it for? Now, the most obvious answer is, it's for me, because holy crap, this is amazing. But really, though, your average beer aficionado, even a craft beer enthusiast, would be, this is not going to be for them. This is going to be raising eyebrows. People are going to be flummoxed and vexed.
In terms of actual tastes, it's probably for the non-existent sherry drinker. In terms of someone that already has, that's looking for a flavour akin to something that they already enjoy. Now, what this is for, like the original Bastard Rye, is for beer nutcases, for craft beer enjoyers that just want to try something completely different. Just
what
beer extreme tourism.
Go to the next step. Go to illogical extremes. Yeah.
This is for beer bungee jumpers. This is a beer destination. It's not. It's so far from anything else. But I mean, it's still beer.
Yeah.
There is a little. It's mild, but there is some bitterness. Bitterness to this.
You could put this into a carafe and serve it to the toffs in the third dessert course at a white tie formal dinner, and it would come across as some sort of dessert wine.
They might not know what they were drinking, but they'd still enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the level of richness and character that's going on here.
Yeah. It is a very remarkable beer. It's also probably for two people minimum, because as I say, there's if one chowed down on this entire 4.3 standard drinks here, you would be well on the way to becoming a nutcase yourself.
Yes,
it's very strong stuff. It's actually got one of the few beers you can drink and get the warming sensation, the alcoholic warmth.
Yeah,
which is normally something you associate with. Well, that kicks in around. Port strength, but no, it's got it here.
Yeah,
got it here immediately. But speaking of cheese, with or without the farting, that's probably the go-to for this one. It is a very, very foodie beer, and cheese is probably Probably the easiest recommendation, just a nice, I wouldn't go blue, blue's a bit tangy, but just a nice cheddar in there, maybe something nice and sharp. But you could have this with, nuts, figs, all sorts of things. But yeah, perfectly scrummy on its own.
It is certainly a beer experience, and it is, like an excellent sequel, a good follow-up to that first Bastard Rye.
It is, and a much more... much less sarcastic follow-up as well, because that was, I love Garage Project just fine. I was just on the phone with Pete not long ago on a different matter, but bringing any beer out for $70 or something, and that was, pre-COVID inflation, $70 too, was frankly laughable. People bought it anyway, but I'll bet the supermarkets had something to say about the pricing on that one. So
there's a lot of investment in it. It was a good 2 years of maturing, buying and importing the barrels, all the rigorous sterilisation.
But yes, this, however, despite 8 years of extra work going into it, is much, much, much cheaper. I think you can get this for, I think these are going for sub $20 or something insane like that. I don't know. What I don't have, but what I can recommend, if you're now part of this rabbit hole and want to go not necessarily deeper but sideways, the rather bizarrely named Beast with Two Backs, also by Garage Project, is a not quite as strong. It's about a percentage less, blended from two different barrels, two different whiskey barrels, I think one local and one American, and dosed with so much espresso, they've basically made the beer version of Tia Maria. It is as heavy and as sort of viscous and soupy as this is. That one is almost spreadable. I should have gotten a second
Beast
one.
with Two Backs is a Shakespeare quote or reference. It's a metaphor for two people having sex.
Oh no, I'm aware of that. I'm just not sure how it relates to. I'm not sure how it relates to.
Well, it's made from two very distinct high energy things coming together in unholy union, or possibly holy, depending how you feel about it.
Certainly. All right. Well, that was an astonishing 17 minutes on that beer. So that's more than.
It's an astonishing beer. It deserves it.
That's more than had its due. So hats off to Wild Workshop there. That is that really is something else. I hope we don't have to wait 8 years for something something akin to this in its impact at the very least, but I don't know. Anyway, that's it from me. We might have more beer contact. I might have more contact with beer, which may result in more beer content, because time ephemeral. But in our space, next weekend I'm going to Oamaru for their Bruxelles Oamaru sort of Belgian beer festival by way of New
also
Zealand
being
brewing.
one of the homes of New Zealand whiskey as well, so
it is.
It could be a twofer. And there's some excellent cheese done that way.
True, it's all coming together, and I'll bring the farts.
Beer, whiskey, and cheese.
We'll be all set. So yes,
meal.
I'll bring the camera, get some good dog footage in there. We'll see what we can do. Also going to Ashburton, but that's probably not really. Nothing against Ashburton, but I don't think there's anything worth taking the camera out. Lose my mind in the, I don't know, Aerospace Museum. Who knows? Anyway, that's enough from us. We will catch you next time.